Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs, and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the pleasure to talk to Caroline Leroux-Boulay. Hello, Caroline. How are you doing?
Hi, Erwin. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome, and welcome, Steve, of course, as always. So, Caroline, we could try to introduce yourself, but you know yourself much better than we do. So who is Caroline? How did she come in coaching? What does she do in coaching? How does she help people?
Well, hi, Steve. I do want to make sure I introduce you as well. That's such a loaded question. And often when I'm in a one-off coaching session with an executive leader, I often say to them, you have a coupon. You can ask me anything you want to know about me that will help you build trust in me. And the question usually, they'll ask about my academia, or how did I get into coaching, or, what kind of leaders have I done this before? But no matter what the question, it's prefaced with, what do you need to know about me so that we can drop into a deeper level of trust? And it also tells me a little bit about their values. However, this time you've asked me to what's my values? What do I think is important about me? And so I'm a little bit giggly over that. What's important about me? I think the first thing is I come from a farming community, large family, very poor, with a great faith and lots of music. And that has really instilled in me a lot of my values and my limiting beliefs, as it does for everyone. But that farm girl is a go-getter kind of girl, and she's pretty fit and tough and resilient. The music part of me is the creative. I've moved from letting other people play music, and I've gone more into dance and art. And the other part is around those limiting, and the faith piece is I really truly believe, it's actually to my benefit to believe that there's something greater, there's a greater power than myself, because man, I like all the pressure on my shoulders if it was all up to me. And it's not that I let go of my responsibility, it's a co-creation. And I think all of those pieces, and the large family, being raised in community to have to work together and get along together, have all really inspired me to keep going along those values and paths. The piece that I would add in there, that in those limiting beliefs, was I was a girl and education wasn't valued. My mother has grade 3, my father had grade 7. They educated themselves after that. They were both the eldest in their families, and got their own education on their own. So they both have, my mother has grade 7 and my dad has high school. And so their aspirations for us was high school is educated. So when I went off to move to the great big city of Montreal to get an education, my dad had some comments. What does a woman need an education for? And he had a very derogatory statement that I won't repeat, but it really pulled out my compassion on how from one generation to the next, there's been such substantial changes. So the other piece in that would be, I'm a real geek. I love school. I love learning. I love just not only the learning in an academia format, but that whole getting to know people and being in community. So that would be a big part of my foundation that then has led me to get married very young, be very committed to a traditional marriage, have 4 children in a very close period of time, but always kind of getting my education there, always doing community, my faith, my music, my art, and being hardworking. And all the way through that, I'm gonna lead into the next question is, how did I get into coaching with that? make your job easier. And that is, we always had family meetings. You know, my children's father traveled a lot. I was with the Canadian Medical Olympic team and traveled a lot. And so I was alone with 4 kids that I had in 5.5 years. So we had to become a team here. So I was raised with that attitude. So the children and I would have these family meetings, about how to make it so that we worked better together. And it was really, peace and harmony is very important to me, and working together is really important to me. And I'm sure when you hear working together in community, this easily led into my love for coaching. And when the kids hit adolescence, and they were all adolescents at the same time, I had just finished my degree in theology, and my professor says, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "Well, this is my next challenge. I don't want to survive my children's adolescence. I want to thrive." And I remember being able to articulate, I come from a very authoritarian style of parenting. And I was in a milieu where there was a lot of laissez-faire style of parenting. I didn't want to do either of those, but I didn't know the third option. And he said, "Why don't you do a coaching course? It's a whole new way to have conversations." So I ended up doing a graduate degree at Concordia in coaching. And I remember going in there and listening to everyone introduce themselves and going, "What am I doing here? I just want to talk to my kids differently." But it turned out to be an inspiring, because it's what I had been intuitively searching for. So coaching fell very naturally into my lifestyle. It helped me start really being intentional in my practice and habits of building partnerships and collaborations with what was growing up to be adult children.
Awesome. I'm enjoying the richness of what you shared. It wasn't bullet points, it wasn't a CV. Like, there was a realness, and I love from a coaching context that you got to articulate what was going on and go, "Oh, values. Here's how we do it. Here's what's going on, and these are my values." So thank you for that. In fact, my heart feels really connected, and my brain's going like, "What just happened?"
Oh no!
I'm loving it. Like, it's really cool. Now that you've learned more about it, now that you're working in the field, what is it that inspires you about coaching?
That's really cool. Just like I had this innate desire for this community to learn how to do partnerships and collaborate, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have enough experience in my life that would have allowed me to go, "Oh, this is collaboration. This is how you create partnerships. This is how you build trust. This is how we work together." I didn't have enough experience or knowledge to do that. But it was innate inside of me. And I think what inspires me is I'm not alone. It's in everyone. And what I feel an absolute privilege to do as a coach, and my master's is in human systems interventions, which means I get to work with organizations to help them be more collaborative, is really around how I get to meet people who are doing just like I did when I was having these adolescents and saying, "How do I do this? I don't want to do authoritarian, and I don't want to do laissez-faire. What is door C?" And it's feeling stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then having this opening to like, here's door C, here's another option of how to be in relationships. And I think that this is what we are searching for. I think this is innate in us. And I get the privilege to partner with people who are trying to learn the same thing I do. And it's very humbling because, I've got my world view and truths, and then I get to hear someone else's, and it's like, I get to expand and learn even more, which is a true partnership, right? So the nerdy part of me gets very well fed as well from this collaborative process.
So who do you work specifically with in your coaching? Is it only organizations or specific people in organization or individuals outside of organization? What is the really your, let me say this, what is your superpower as a coach?
Hmm. Well, those to me are two different questions.
Yeah, no, I love to do like multiple
Those
questions.
so above the waterline, what you would see is I work with executive leaders. I work in government, healthcare, education, and that's my primary bread and butter. The other piece that I get to do is I get to work with organizations that help coaches develop their coaching style, their coaching signatures, their coaching mindsets. And that is an absolute privilege. Like, talk about just leveling up the conversation. But I'm the one that get paid in that partnership. So it's always wow. So I work with other coaches in helping them develop their mindsets, either around with the tools of emotional intelligence, neuroscience, and I'm about to embark on a new niche, which is addiction. And not that I want to be coaching in addiction. I'll be working with an organization who are helping coaches developing their mindsets to work with people with addiction. So those are the clienteles above the water. And the other piece of your question was, what's my signature piece? I'd like to just think I'm just real. Like you used the word earlier before we started, authenticity is a really big value. And what I recognize is, again, these are innate in us. These are our deepest desires, is to connect honestly, truthfully, deeply with others and to be accepted and not be dismissed. I don't think we were ever taught those skills, but I think we know them. Once we experience them and then someone names it, we can become intentional in connecting to that and repeating that, and it becoming part of who we are and how we show up in our relationships and for ourselves. So I think my signature piece is really about, I'm not special. We all have this. I just had the opportunity to study it, to be around people who help nurture it, to have a prayer life and an upbringing where I've got the farm girl who works hard, my faith who believes in community and love and trust and fellowship and charity, that I have the geek in me that wants to keep learning and growing. And so I think this is just being real. And to recognize we all have it, but I get the privilege to help you develop that part of who you are.
How does emotional intelligence and neuroscience help people choose to be more real or express more realness and authenticity?
I think structure and framework helps us feel a little bit more in control and organize our thoughts. So emotional intelligence and neuroscience. Well, emotional intelligence helps us to identify these skills and these competencies that help us develop these partnerships and this collaborative style of building community. So emotional intelligence is labeling it, but from a scientific point of view. No, and I always go, no woo-woo with me. When you're working with top executives, they don't want the woo-woo. They want the science. They want to know, I know there's my stuff. And that helps them build trust. And that trust helps them drop into that realness and connect with themselves. So that's where I would think emotional intelligence fits in. And as a coach, it helped me identify what is it we're all really looking for, those pieces. So, building our own self-awareness, looking at how we express ourselves, how we are in relationships, how do we make our decisions, and how do we manage our stress. So and in stress now with the neuroscience is managing stress and creating flow. So, that's the co-creation with the divine, with the other. So that's the emotional intelligence. It really helped me frame What am I trying to do here? What is the transformational changes we're looking to help people do? And it gives a framework. The neuroscience is how do you work with the brain to get there faster? And oh, what a privilege it's been to work with Dr. Irina O'Brien in the neuroscience school and it was both of those tools. I'm just going to take a break here. Both of those tools help me build my confidence that I'm being purposeful and intentional to help guide someone develop what they want to be developing or where they're focusing. And neuroscience really helps me be more efficient in how I do that for sustainable change. So for transformational change to happen, you need to study to know how that process happens. And how does the brain work with you? How does the body work with you? So that you can get those behaviors that you want. So brain-body behavior connection. So if you don't understand how the brain is working for or against you, it's harder then to help a client guide their action plan or the coaching session around what needs to happen or not happen to be able to open up or close down.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know, what's a simple definition for emotional intelligence? Define simple however you want, by the way.
Emotional intelligence is really people skills. It's how do you relate to yourself and others? And then how do you show up in the world? It's really that. And like I said, how do you develop your self-awareness? How do you look at, what you're doing and how you're doing it? How do you relate to others? How do you make your decisions? I remember in university and a master's program, they said, how are you making your decisions as a group? And I'm thinking, I have no flipping clue how I make decisions on my own, long less how we're doing it as a group. And so just studying decision making, it's a huge piece. How do you make decisions? And the last one around managing stress. Stress is only bad for you if you think it is. That's not a concept that most people would understand. And are you taking care of your body battery? Because your brain is only there to help you survive and manage your energy. And it uses predictive brain patterns to do that. So when you're getting to stress is only bad for you if you think it is.
Can you go a little bit deeper in that? Because it's
I'm glad that I can see you. Erwin's like, is that real? In Montreal here, we have La Mamotte. I can't even think of the English word. It sounds like mammoth. The mammoth?
Mammoth. The big elephant with the fur and the...
Yes. So it's a prehistoric elephant. Yeah. So there's an institution and they study stress. So here's a perfect example. We're doing this right now. If I see this and frame this in my mind as this great opportunity, I'm going to be safe. This is exciting. My body will not register it with high cortisol levels. If my mindset is, oh my God, this is dangerous. I need to watch my back. This is awful. I've now increased my stress and now I'm going to release cortisol. That's not good for me. So it's the same experience with two different mindsets that allow two different chemical releases.
Interesting. It's basically the typical metaphor saying, is the glass half full or half empty? It's basically what you're saying about stress. How do you look at it? You can look at one way or the other way. And how do you deal? And it's not only with stress, it's with so many things in life that you can look at. Say, do I look at more on the positive side and how is it going to help me? Or look at the negative side and how is it going to...
Yeah.
I know that you want to use bad words, but...
I love that metaphor of the glass. Do you choose the glass? Do you see the glass as half full or half empty? But Erwin, the glass is full. Half of it is full of air and the other half is full of water. both you need to sustain life.
Very good.
What happens, Erwin, as you hear it framed that way?
So that my metaphor doesn't bloody work anymore, but anyway.
Okay, so we got it.
So the question there then comes up is, what is more important, the water or the air in the glass?
Yeah. And
Uh,
I think when we find true collaborative space, we find out a way to have both and to accept both and to make room for both. So I love that metaphor. It's come up before, and I'm thinking, but why were we sold the idea that we had to choose one or the other? Why is it we never saw the space was filled with air? You know, we're sold these limiting beliefs.
mhm. Can you go a little bit deeper in those about those limiting beliefs that
I
you're
don't know,
talking about?
Erwin. I think that's probably as far as I've got on that method. That
Okay. So
imagery.
no, but I'm trying to picture what you just said about the glass is half full with water and half full with air, so it's completely full.
The
But
thing
that
that
positive.
the thing that stands or comes up for me with your question, Erwin, is through the limiting beliefs that we've bought into, there's almost a myth that we carry around what's happening around us. I know this happens in organizations, in families, everywhere we go. Everything we see and experience, well, is one thing. And then there's this whole story, the meaning that we've created around it. But we can only create a meaning based upon what we've identified as important.
Mhm.
And my interpretation of reality can be completely different to your interpretation of reality, just like this glass. And when I look at leadership, business, coaching, and life, there's a whole lot of stuff in that glass that people are actively ignoring.
Yes.
But it's real, it's there. And when you talk about collaboration, trust, connection, there's a whole lot of stuff there that's real that people are ignoring, and actually ignoring those things often causes a lot of the problems that we are trying to solve. I mean, that's what comes up for me.
Oh, thank you for that.
It's what I see. It's like what I've seen, that it's also that duality that we need to have, and I'm in life, that you need to have good, bad, or great or small, and at the end, basically what you just said, Caroline, about the glass, actually there is no duality. It's
What,
just one unity.
what is Dorsey, you said before?
Sorry?
What is Dorsey?
Dorsey, yeah.
The third option. What
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that?
Yeah.
It's interesting. So
What's catching your attention here, Caroline? I can see lots of stuff sort of bubbling.
I really am enjoying both of your perspectives, and I love the fact that I can see your faces, and yes, and you can see mine. I'm churning. And I think I want to go back to one of the superpowers is being able to see around a corner and see blind spots, and question. You know, we talk about curiosity as a great coaching, but taking the time to question what the dominant discourse is. And it was great to see Erwin's face going, oh yeah, I never thought of that. But that's the pleasure of being in rich conversations, is now you didn't have to think about that. Someone's done that. And that's part of the fun of being in resonant relationships, right? The coaching partnerships is you don't have to think about everything. Other people have done some work and have thought about stuff, and then we exponentially grow. But it's that duality of either or versus it can be an and. And I giggle because I'm going to do a Bible thumper piece. And that is one of my big readings that I've held as a child that I've grown up is we are in communion. We are one body. And the indigenous people talk about being one with the earth and one body. This is very much a Christian belief as well. And we keep thinking it's an either or, but the reality is, I believe we have not expanded enough to see it's an and. That one is not better than the other. But when we come together, it becomes just so wow. We can do so much more. And so the biblical reading is, the eye cannot say it's better than the hand, and the hand cannot say it's better than the eye. But if they work together. So that duality is something that needs to be challenged. And that's the competition, right? Thomas Kilman's around, competition and accommodating. It goes back to authoritarian or laissez-faire styles versus collaboration, where the task is important and the relationship is important. It's not either or.
I'm glad you mentioned task and relationship there. I often draw this for leaders, because we'll see task, and relationship on the same dimension. Either I'm focused on work or I'm focused on people. It's one or the other. And through that lens, people that are connecting are wasting time. Conversation is a waste of time. We've got to get on, and we've got to get on the task. But that's through the perspective that they're on the same dimension. In many ways, they're actually two completely different dimensions, which means that we can have high task and we can have high relationship. And there's a powerful alignment, communal synergy that starts to emerge. And just with a redefinition of the perspective of reality, literally, we've gone from one dimension to two. Everything's opened up in ways that were impossible from that initial perspective.
Yeah. Your comment around people think it has to be either or, right? It either has to be the relationship. Oh, it's just business. Yeah, it has to be either or. I think one of the big shifts why coaching is gaining some traction, especially in government and corporations, is the understanding that it's not an either or, it's an and that this collaborative style is good for business. But we haven't got the skills to develop these, what I'm going to name, Boyatzis is coming up right now, resonant relationships. It is one of the core signature pieces in great coaching, is being able to build a resonant relationship. And resonant relationships are built on trust. And trust requires to put some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. And I'm very aware of that. And I'm very intentional of the privilege I have of being the coach in the relationship, and to make sure that I put some skin in the game. And when I'm, especially the higher they are, the further they fall, and the more protection they have around them. So hence my question around, what do you want to know about me to build trust? So it kind of tells me a little bit about their value system. But one of the funny things I do, especially in organizations where I know there's a lot of political correctness, I contract, can we swear? Like, can I swear? Because and it's such a simple little thing, but they are so contained and politically correct and so self-regulated that when something happens, just being able to go, are you effing kidding me? Just being able to have the emotional response for them so they can reconnect to their emotion of anger or despair is an important element in the resonant relationship. But putting some skin in the game, like that I'm in there. And I think it's something I do well in all my relationships. It's wherever you go, there you are. So, And the science, I'm so glad that Boyatzis is coming in and showing the resonant relationship is important in building partnerships, because then you can take that study and you can take a leader who says, a check-in before an important meeting, developing. So how's everyone coming in today, and just having that small talk, how it's important for building the resonant relationship that builds trust. And so when you frame the check-in that way, and how resonant relationships creates to higher communications, team building, and better outcomes, the leader tends to get on board a little bit faster with doing a check-in and just taking 10 minutes to see how everyone's doing.
That's so profound. And I think, as you said, and as the word, it's a basic relationship that you have, and the better that people feel and are being seen and being recognized by a leader or someone who is leading, and that could be in their organizations, that could be like we talked in some other podcast, Steve, about that, can be in the military is the same, in schools is the same. For example, a teacher in school asking the kids, "How are you feeling this morning?" Instead of going in and going, writing. It is so simple, but it's not done.
Yeah. You just said it. It's so simple. Being connected. And that's the part that I learned. I'm thinking, really? It's so natural for me to say, so how are you coming in today? Like, it's simple. And then when I added the science beside it, and where the impact and results it gets, when I've been able to line up those things, I feel like Superwoman. I feel like I'm changing the world one little drop at a time when I say, how are you today?
And it doesn't cost anything. I learned this from my parents. My parents always said, "Say thank you," and something like a supermarket say thank you or good morning. Just go, what's happening with you? Because they're not used to it, and it doesn't cost you anything, and you make your surrounding much more easier and happier around you for yourself, and just by saying thank you to someone is like, oh, that's nice.
These easy things to do that are also easy to not do.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
training.
well, it's remembering, it's practice. It's where you pointed us before, Caroline. It's about awareness of recognizing what works. And I'm noticing the clock and where we're at, and this could definitely go on forever. And I look forward to coming back for part two. But one of the themes that's really striking me, and we've kind of come full circle to all of this, it's where you started, which is, look, there's these things that are innate. There's these ways of being that are present in all of us that A, we've forgotten about, B, we've been trained against, and that there's an opportunity for us as leaders and coaches to help people find the words, find the models, find the structures to remember to reconnect. And the way that you use the evidence and the science is also to give ourselves permission to do these simple yet profoundly important and meaningful actions, because they are important.
Yeah, and both of you, thank you for sharing and doing that summary, because both of you put two other really big pieces of what's important in a coaching relationship or any relationship. And Erwin, you talked about manners, and it doesn't cost anything. And I raised my children saying manners are free. And the next piece that you added to that is it makes for a happy environment. And the science in that, and again, Boyatzis' work, is positive emotional attractors are your Snickers bar when you are looking for transformational change or climbing Kilimanjaro. So those being able to contribute to environments that are safe and happy help people flourish. And then the other piece, Steve, that you put in is around how you, when you line up these ducks and connect the dots, it gives permission. But more than that, it allows us to have compassion for our compassion is simply common humanity and kindness. And Dr. Brené Brown's work around shame. We need to use the only antidote to shame that we didn't get it perfect. We're going to upset people when we try to do it our way and put our needs in the mix, and that is compassion. So the science helps give us permission to have compassion for ourselves so that we can have the only antidote to the shame of our imperfections, and that we can then move forward with our limiting beliefs and assumptions and biases and create new awarenesses around that glass of water is full. It's always been full.
Wow, what a finish. Like, and for those that are ready to move forwards and learn more about you, how you see the world, the work that you're doing, how can people connect?
Well, my email is Leroux-Boulay, LEROUXBOULAY @gmail.com. And I work with the Neuroscience School with Dr. Erwin O'Brien, and the Emotional Intelligence Company with David Corey. And the other organizations I work with, well, if I told you, then we would have to both die. And obviously through contacting the coaching tools company as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'm ponderous and reflective upon both the journey and the content that we've had today. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for being real and for dancing with different directions and questions. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Caroline, for doing this. I have like 100 million more questions I would love to ask and have a coffee around this and go. So, but anyway, thank you very much for sharing this. Thank you for being authentic and real. And everybody else listening in, thank you for listening in. And until next time, take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.